David Amess.
I congratulate the Backbench Business Committee, of which I have to confess I am a member, on giving us this opportunity to have this debate. I have observed, Madam Deputy Speaker, that some colleagues have used it extremely well, particularly my honourable friend, the member for Devizes, who spoke so movingly, and I do congratulate her on bringing the Military Wives Choir to Portcullis House yesterday. But before we adjourn for the Whitsun recess, there are a number of points I wish to raise. First of all, I've got 3 early day motions which I urge colleagues to phone before we to sign before we rise for the Whitsun recess. The first is congratulating West Ham United on being promoted to the Premiership in spite of some poor management and overinflated ticket prices. The second is to congratulate Chelsea on beating Bayern Munich. And the third, which I think members on this House might be pleased with, is to condemn the behaviour of some of the people attending the Police Federation conference. I thought their behaviour was disgraceful, the way they tried to bully and intimidate the Home Secretary, and I thought, as far as they were concerned, it was a public relations disaster. Online newspaper comments. I'm increasingly concerned that the whole system whereby people can publish things as a result of electronic newspaper articles without their names and addresses is totally unacceptable. Yes, swear words have a few expletives on it, but there seems to be absolutely no legislation dealing with the matter. None of us really have the money to fight it through the courts, even if it was possible. But I do know of one local newspaper in my own area that as soon as an article is written about myself, which I don't actually send to them, the abuse is just endless. Now, it's water off a duck's back as far as I'm concerned, but for some people rather close to me, it can be a little bit offensive. So I welcome the defamation bill which is coming to the House, but I do think there should be much, much stricter controls. And it's absolutely gutless if someone wants to say abusive things online that they aren't forced to leave their name and address. Public sector regulation. Now, recent public anger has been directed towards the high pay received by private sector bosses, most notably those from the big banks. But I would question what regulation there is for some of these public sector executives. In 2009, we find that 31 council bosses earned more than the Prime Minister. Absolutely crazy, while chief executives of public bodies can take home in excess of £250,000. And I'm not satisfied that there is proper scrutiny of these events. There's a number of public sector organisations I can think of in Essex, whether it be the Probation Service or NHS Trust and others, and I'm worried about the lack of scrutiny. So, for instance, Essex Police. I think it is less than acceptable that a Member of Parliament has to resort to the Freedom of Information Act to confirm after a number of months that when Lee Police Station was closed, in actual fact, the people who were consulted lived miles away, so there was no consultation. It's taken me 2 years just to confirm that Essex Police Constable, the present Chief Constable of Essex, was chosen from a short list of 1. I mean, this is absolutely outrageous because the other candidates had withdrawn apparently on the day, and then I asked who took the decision not to re-advertise the position. The decision was made in the first instance by Essex Police Authority, which absolutely says it all. So after 30 years, Essex Police Authority have never engaged with me as a Member of Parliament. So I think there needs to be much, much greater scrutiny. Members of Parliament, anyone can get rid of us if they want to after now 5 years. But I think some of these bodies seem to be a law unto themselves, and I certainly feel there should be far greater scrutiny. Regulation of private clamping companies. I must admit, Madam Deputy Speaker, one of my children had an unfortunate experience recently from one of these clamping companies. We are dealing with it through the Small Claims Court, and I'm determined that we should win. But to charge someone £480 and then intimidate and bully them is totally unacceptable. I understand that the Protection of Freedoms Act will outlaw wheel clamping on private land, which I certainly welcome, but I do think private clamping companies must be much more tightly regulated. Vioxx. I think I must accept Madam Deputy Speaker's guidance. Some of us have been here since 1 o'clock, and I know that Madam Deputy Speaker is very, very keen to get everyone in, so I apologise not giving way on this occasion. I'm dismayed that victims of the Whitsun disaster are still struggling to get compensation. Whitsun was the biggest drugs disaster in human history, killing more than 100,000 people worldwide and leaving many more suffering with horrific side effects. With this in mind, I find it unbelievable that victims are still fighting legal battles. So far, the United States of America is the only country where a Whitsun settlement has been won. Attempts in settlement terms have been made in Canada and Australia, but certainly we don't seem to be progressing too well in this country. ADHD drugs and their impact. Now, Madam Deputy Speaker, all of us with children know that the biggest challenge we face is bringing up children. But I'm very worried about something which has been brought to my attention by a constituent, Mrs. Stephanie Lister, who drew to my attention that behavioural disorders are just described as a child having ADHD. Very young children are often issued with powerful treatments such as Ritalin, but she said, has it ever been considered the damage that they might cause? Children often complain of chest pains, vomiting and even total memory loss as a result of taking medications for behavioural conditions. And it is quite extraordinary that such prescriptions provide big business. In 2010, the NHS spent £48 million on ADHD drugs, while the number of prescriptions has increased steadily over the past decade, as in currently somewhere around the 750,000 marks. Quite extraordinary. I must tell the House that I'm very concerned about the political situation in the Maldives. The resignation of President Nasheed in February caused great turmoil. Last week, the Speaker of the Maldivian Parliament came to see me. Their parliament is in deadlock, while the Speaker was barred from entering the state opening ceremony. He wisely chose not to intervene with force, but I do urge, through the Deputy Leader of the House, to ensure that Her Majesty's government does as much as it possibly can to help with the situation in the Maldives. We're very upmarket in Essex, so we don't talk about kids, we talk about children. But 2 weeks ago, the Kid Count Award took place on the terrace of the House of Commons, and it was a privilege to be there. I personally presented one of my constituents, Stephanie Miliori, with the Kids Count Award for the most inspirational young person. It was a wonderful evening. We had celebs there like Tony Hadley, the still great singer, and Darren Campbell, the still great runner. And this 17-year-old Stephanie has two older brothers with tremendous challenges, and she has been absolutely magnificent in looking after those two brothers. Kensho. I'm proud that I have been given a new book written by one of my constituents. Simon Sear has written the inspirational Kensho book, The Art of Happiness, which of course, Madam Deputy Speaker, we all chase. He is the wife of Juliet Sear from a very popular local bakery called Fancy Nancy. The book outlines a personal transformation program drawing on psychological tools and Simon's own personal experience. There's a big focus in the book on happiness, reinforcing social messages of the current government, and I recommend it to all colleagues as a good bedtime read. The economy. I was delighted that one of my honourable friends raised the matter of what the managing director of the IMF said only this week. And I do think that some members opposite are suffering from amnesia. For 13 years, we had a Labour government. For 13 years, the then government had an opportunity to, frankly, transform our nation's prospects, but started off by Tony Blair and then finished by the former Prime Minister. I think our country was left in a dreadful state of affairs. So no wonder the managing director said she shivers to think what would have happened without fiscal consolidation implemented by our present government. and I hope that our government will stand firm on our present policy. Last Thursday, Southend was blessed with the arrival of a new cultural centre on the end of the longest pier in the world. It is the first new building to be constructed on the pier since 2000, because unfortunately we've had 3 fires over the last 50 years. And this building, which weighs 170 tonnes, was brought on vessels down the River Thames, has been put in place, and I think is going to be an icon in terms of the eastern region. And I urge all honourable members of this House to visit it. Of course, Madam Deputy Speaker, we are all looking forward to the Olympic celebration throughout the country. I think the Olympic torch arriving in the southwest has been absolutely marvellous. I congratulate all those who've made it possible for 95% of the population to be involved with the celebrations regarding the Olympic torch. But of course the highlight will be when the torch on the 6th of July will come to Southend. Mark Foster has been announced as one of the torch bearers, and the torch will be met by a choir of 2,000 people, and I think it's going to be a wonderful occasion, and I'm advised that there will also be some flash mob dancing. In conclusion, Madam Deputy Speaker, of course we have next week the Jubilee celebrations. In fact, we do have the Jubilee party in Westminster Hall this evening. And I know many honourable members will be on the terrace on Sunday, the 3rd of June. In Southend, we've had 67 applications for street parties, so we're certainly going to celebrate 60 years glorious that the Sovereign has reigned over us all. And I wish the House and all our officials a very happy Whitsun recess.
Yeah.